record.
I was associate.
So people missed the mole
Before
talk. Too bad.
Doing.
you may want to cut this out of the recording, but I was going to say
I
before
can
we
hit it. Hold
actually
on.
start.
Oh my God! How could you say that? Since
I'll
I
say
hit the
it
record
again.
In the show, right?
I
Okay.
said it,
Sorry.
and I'll say it again.
I won't say it again.
Let's see. I don't need the three idiots notes. The Dorcons. There we go. I have the Dorcons up. Mark, I think you were summarying, which I think
Yep.
you said you see. Yeah, last week you sounded confident on that. So
Everything, yeah. All this, the trivia and the summary are like 3 times as long as my actual notes. This is going to be a lot of me talking. So get ready. Welcome to Podcast 1999, the podcast about Space 1999. I'm Malik.
you Dorcon.
That's right. I'm the Dorcon.
He is Malik, though.
No, wait a minute. I thought you were the Mark of Arcanon. Now you're Malik, the Archon.
Yeah.
This is getting very confusing.
I want to be
Dorcon,
Archon, but I'm not. I might not
dorc
ever get
off.
there.
I know what's in your mind, Malik, so your advice is rejected.
No, I'll kill all of you. I'll kill
I
all
could
the
see
guards.
that being the catchphase from now on.
Oh yeah, we'll have to keep using that one. Okay. Anyway, yeah, this is Matt here.
Okay, I'm Brian.
Yep, you're up. Coming back. Choosing an episode called The Dorcons. It's Earl Green from Mission Log Genealogy. Howdy.
Yay!
Hey, everybody, how you doing?
Kermit Flail.
Great.
Hey! This
Thanks
is
for
history,
coming back.
Earl. I think this is the first time we've been on the same podcast together when I, wasn't the caller and you weren't the engineer.
Were you not? Did we not do the last sunset? Were you on that
I wasn't
one?
here regularly at that point. I kind of came on
Oh.
at the end of season 1 as a regular here.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not-
yeah. Because you came in for dancing in towels outside the moon base, eating mushrooms. Why can't I remember the name of the episode?
And the last sunset.
Yes, thank you. You
That's the
said,
last
did you?
sunset.
Paul Morrow trips balls. You made that the official description of the episode.
Yes, that was the
I
thumbnail
think that was the image.
for the episode. That's correct.
Anyway.
And it's just like I could only get away with using a Fred Friedberger still from the end like once. You can't do that twice. You can do it once, but I think we chose the right one for that.
But they're always good.
Yeah. Earl, I always like to ask people who choose episodes why they chose the one they did. I mean, this one's the last episode. That might have something to do with it, but does it go deeper in that?
I'm here for Patrick Troughton. I'm here to stand up for Patrick Troughton showing up in this thing, which actually he's probably the best thing about it, but maybe I'm jumping to the end there.
I do like that this is one where it's our question from season 1 was always how much sci-fi fun, how much existential dread, which there's only like 3 season 2 episodes we can do that for. I think this is one of them. This one seems a little dready. I guess because
having
it's
your
got the Johnny Burns
brainstem
script.
ripped out is kind of existentially dreadful.
Yeah, being
Maya sure
harvested.
didn't like the concept. She was pretty hysterical half the episode. Well, most of the episode, wasn't really probably the best script for Maya, but
Well, I
right.
think the average person, if you tell them you're going to rip out their brainstem, they're not going to sit there and go, "Oh, all right
True.
then."
Yeah,
Well,
I
the
don't
Dorcons are on the
Well-
level of just like a horror of the Psychon race, right? they're like
Like a Borg, if you will.
Borg or Satan
Resistance
incarnate.
is
It's going to come and get you.
futile.
They told Psychon children when they tuck them in, Dorcons will come and get you if you don't eat all of your soup.
Yeah, imagine telling a kid the Dorcons will come get your brainstem if you don't eat your soup, and then the Dorcons just come and kill them anyway.
Soup has
They-
nothing to do with it.
Does the brainstem fairy at least leave a quarter under the pillow or something?
That would be nice.
They leave like $6.
It's like, I'm a vegetable now, but I've got a quarter.
You
Some of that
wouldn't be a
question to me.
vegetable. Brainstem does like autonomic functions, right? Like circulation, things like that.
You'd be
You'd be
dead.
dead. Yes.
Dead vegetable.
If they were taking out like your frontal lobe, now you'd be like a vegetable, right? So I guess it's.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to come down too hard on this episode for that because whatever.
the
but
biology's a little off there, I think. But
That
this
would've been
raises all
easy
sorts of
fix.
questions about the relationship. If the Dorcons were so powerful, were they the cause of the fall of Psychon? I thought their planet was just going to hell and turning into volcanoes. It seemed like long before that, they must have figured out some way to fend them off. Otherwise, they would have be all gone by now.
Or
Maybe
maybe they
there's
chose
not a
that
huge
place.
demand for brain stems. You know,
Yeah.
they only come around every 100 years for a brain stem or something.
They may have chosen that place because, you know, oh, the Dorcons are never going to come here.
What, this is
Property
the original
values are
Psychon? This
simply
is
too low.
Anyway,
I
I've
may
been,
be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
you go ahead.
Oh, I may be a dissenting opinion here. I actually thought this episode was a banger. I thought it was really good because I understood why people did things. There was a clear motivation for every villain. They said, you know, there was treachery, but the treachery made sense. And Koenig had, okay, aside from a couple of like almost psychic karate moves that he did that he shouldn't have been able to do, he got a good action role. That it just was. I guess this is low bar stuff, but it's like it made sense as a story, and I understood everyone's motivation, and it went from A to B to C in a way that made sense.
I kind of agreed with it. Is it the John Kenneth Murray book where his chapter on it? He's kind of like he pretty much agrees with Mark, which I like this episode pretty well. But he did make a good point. Maybe instead of just watching Koenig, you know, scramble around aimlessly for 7 or 8 minutes, occasionally punching people, we might have shown, you know, Helena and Tony back on Moonbase, like having, you know, flipping out a little bit. That their
Yes.
paramours have disappeared.
Yeah, they just disappear for the next 2 acts. Then you just never see anything until the very end. That was
Anyway, I
kinda
wanted to
funny.
put all this up front chat because Mark pre-warned us that he's going to be talking for the next several minutes.
Yeah, let's get into it
Okay, and
with the trivia. This is it, the 24th episode in production order for season 2, 48th episode overall, and the final episode of Space 1999. Even though ITC had planned a third series of the show to make it more tempting for syndication and possibly a concurrent spin-off with Catherine Schell as Maya in the lead, I don't know how she was going to get off Alpha, but I assume she would have. The cast was told that not enough stations had placed renewal orders. However, according to Schell and Martin Landau, the budget for the third season was sacrificed to provide advertising to 3 ITC theatrical films, The Cassandra Crossing, March or Die, and Circle of Iron, all of which bombed anyway. Lou Grade only funded 2 TV series after this, The Muppet Show and Return of the Saint, which did feature several Space 1999 actors, itself only lasting 1 season due to its budget also being diverted to film projects. In that context, it's miraculous that the Muppet Show even happened at all, let alone lasting 5 seasons. And in fact, Jim Henson was the one who made the call to end it at the peak of its popularity. So it escaped the fate of the other shows. Grade ultimately lost control of ITC in 1982 after the failure of the films Raise the Titanic and Can't Stop the Music. Jerry Anderson was brainstorming with Fred Freiberger immediately for a new series, but nothing came of it, and he had finances for 2 feature films collapse. The failure of 5 Star 5 caused many of Anderson's longtime associates to turn on him for ending up unpaid for their work on it. Thankfully, he was able to return to TV years later with 1983's Terrahawks, which not only introduced a new technique called super macromation that allowed for more realistic puppetry, it also helped fuel a resurgence in interest in Anderson's previous work among younger audiences and led to a few more series before he passed away in 2012. Freiberger moved immediately into the role of producer for the 5th season of $6 Million Man, which was then itself canceled, cementing his nickname Series Killer. Multiple sources have claimed that the series he's worked on had other factors that killed them, Space 1999 being obviously among them, but the stigma plagued Freiberger for the rest of his life. Shortly before his death in the early 2000s, Freiberger showed up at a science fiction convention and attempted to defend his actions regarding Space 1999's second season. He was booed off the podium. In the wake of the success of Star Wars, which, as you recall, released a few episodes ago, ITC pulled 8 episodes of Space 1999 to form 4 TV movies for international distribution, some of which made their way into theaters as B movies. This removed those episodes from the syndication package that was already small, and ITC subsequently raised the price of the syndication package. This resulted in the series disappearing from the airwaves by the early 80s, and many people of my generation, myself included, didn't discover it until the days of home video and onward. Anyway, as for this episode, the Dorcons, Johnny Byrne has the writing credit. According to an interview with Byrne, he would have preferred that Freiberger had used a script he submitted between the first and second season called Children of the Gods. In the script, Moonbase Alpha is dismantled and put back together on another planet by children from the future with a super intelligent companion named Mentor, and they are put through a series of trials to survive and prove humanity's worth. It's revealed that the children are the direct descendants of the Alphans from the future, from the planet that they eventually settle on. And then they learn what love is and sacrifice themselves so the current Alphans can continue living. Even though Jerry Anderson called it the best thing he'd ever read, Freiberger wanted nothing to do with it, and the script itself was lost to time. According to other sources, the script for this episode, The Dorcons, written by Byrne to fulfill his 3-episode contract for season 2, was crafted as deliberately cartoonish to both satisfy and mock Freiberger. Byrne did go on record as saying that he'd crafted this script with a race that hunted Psychons because he was tired of Maya being used to get out of every perilous situation. So that's why it felt like Maya was being targeted the whole time.
Damsel in distress.
Yeah, this time the writer is the villain. Even so, the script was still altered beyond recognition to slash the budget because the production was nearly out of money. Bill Fraser was deleted from the script. There were no ceilings on the alien vessel sets. Multiple scenes were either deleted or moved from various sets to the command center. The original script ended with Koenig delivering the line, "What's in the past is gone. Fate has played us some strange hands, but we've won through in the end. As for the future, that starts right here and now." And then he kisses Helena. That entire scene was cut. As for our guest stars, Archon, which turns out is not a name, but a title, it's played by Patrick Troughton. Born in London in 1920, he trained in both the UK and USA, and after his time enlisted during World War II came and went, he became a Shakespearean actor. This soon led to many on-screen Shakespearean roles, then over 200 on-screen credits in total, including Doctor Who as the second Doctor Who. That's right. Just under the wire, we finally have a genuine Doctor Who on the cast. He played that role for 3 years from 1966 through 1969. You can also see him in Jason and the Argonauts, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, and most importantly, in The Omen as Father Brennan, making him the highest billed Space 1999 guest in the Omen cast. He continued acting until 1987 when he passed away from a heart attack at the age of 67. As Consul Varda, who has both a name and a title, we have Anne Furbank, born in 1933 in Secunderabad, India. She made her acting debut in the 50s and stayed busy this whole time, mostly with British TV and film credits. You can catch her in Danger Man, A Man Could Get Killed, Dead Man's Chest, and everyone's favorite Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Her most recent credit was in 2022, so hopefully she'll be invited back for Star Wars Episode 10, Revenge of Palpatine's Ghost again. Finally, as Malik, no relation. Also, it's spelled Malic. We have Jerry Sundquist, born in Manchester. Out of high school, he worked night shift at the Kellogg's factory, but soon quit to pursue acting. This episode was his 4th credit on IMDb, and most of his acting credits were in the late 70s and early 80s, and included works such as The Music Machine, Meetings with Remarkable Men, and Alexandria... Why? His career tapered off by the late 80s and early 90s, and in 1993, Sundquist left a note apologizing to his family and then died from suicide at the age of 37. I know I like to get real jokey in these trivia sections, but it's obvious from what I saw in this episode that Sundquist had a lot of potential, and it's not fair that he was convinced his acting career defined his worth. In fact, his life had more than enough worth even if he worked night shift at the Kellogg's factory for his entire life. Please, if you're having suicidal thoughts, realize that your life has worth that has no relation to your productivity or status, and reflect on how much you mean to people around you and how much there is to live for. I know people always say talk to someone and it's never enough, but believe me, you can find a way to move forward, and the important thing to do is to find the way forward, and you can do it. That's the trivia for Final Trivia. And now the story, the much less serious story. Alpha has come across a probe in space, and after it scans the Alphans, Freezing everyone except Maya, it reveals itself as a spaceship that Maya recognizes as belonging to Dorcons, a species that hunts psychons to remove their brain stems to give themselves immortality. Consul Varda of the Dorcons appears on screen and demands that Alpha surrender Maya to them. Commander Koenig refuses, and the Dorcons begin attacking, proving that the Alphans' weaponry is no match for theirs. Koenig threatens to kill Maya if they don't cease the attack. They comply and then beam down to Alpha. Maya transforms into a human as a disguise, but the Dorcons immediately see through it and take her back to their ship using their transporter beam. Koenig jumps into the beam and follows them, but is immediately caught. Consul Varda orders for Koenig to be sent back and killed if he doesn't cooperate. Meanwhile, Maya is subdued and restrained. The plan is to transplant her brainstem to the Archon, the leader of the Dorcons, although his nephew Malik thinks that he should be the one to receive the transplant. Varda tells security that Malik is not to be allowed to access the Archon. Malik visits Koenig and kills the guards holding him and tells Koenig to go help Maya. Malik then sends out an alert that Koenig is the one who killed the guards. Varda offers guards to kill Koenig, but Malik helps Koenig again by killing more guards. He then gains access to the room where the transfer is to take place and kills the doctor and the Archon himself. Koenig jumps out of a vent and frees Maya just as Malik has shut off the restraining beam that was suppressing her powers. Maya then is free to transform into a creature from some sort of lagoon to overpower Malik. She and Koenig escape but are intercepted by Varda. Koenig informs her that Malik is the one who's been doing all the killings. She pulls a weapon on him, but he dodges it, and her shot destroys the shields. Koenig and Maya then run to the transporter beam and make it safely back to Alpha to watch the ship explode from afar. Alan makes everyone coffee, and everyone prefers that to Tony's beer. And Koenig flirts with Helena by making her jealous and then asking her to fix his hands. The end.
All right. So
Sorry, that
there
was a
were
little bit of a soup.
yeah, I did have two specific things. One, scratch another civilization, Koenig. Okay.
Yep.
Do they all live on the ship though? Because it was like we rule over thousands of civilizations
No, I mean,
from the ship.
No.
they're going to have a big fight back home as to who's going to ascend to the throne now, right?
Yeah. I
It's a
guess
shame we only see like three real Dorcons and just a bunch of, stormtroopers.
dead guards.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah, on
And
the
like
home planet-
stormtroopers, they're terrible shots and can be easily defeated.
Yeah, on the home planet, it's going to be, but I was the Archon's nephew's roommate. I am clearly in the line of ascension.
How many Maliks are there? Mark, can you tell us that?
Hundreds.
This is going to happen so many times. So there were two things to end the series. I was disappointed that beer did not end the series, but one, let's blow up the sets. That was clear in this episode.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
because you were saying they were running out of money, which I mean I thought the Dorcon sets were creative, but they did look cheap, especially the throne room, which cool cutouts, but on a black set, I mean that's a good way to do it cheap, I guess.
I thought the probe at the beginning that was the disguise was the cheapest looking thing.
Yeah.
Like it was sort of squarish.
That ship looked familiar. Either we saw it in another episode of this or I don't know what. Did
For
you
some
recognize that
reason,
ship,
maybe.
Earl? As sort
I
of-
was thinking that got repainted and used in an episode of Blake 7 somewhere down the road. It did look awfully familiar. Like maybe in
Blake 7, I didn't think about that.
because there were some Space 1999 models that got salvaged and reused later, especially if some of those guys who later wound up working in the BBC effects department had started out at Bray Studios.
Okay, maybe that's where I saw it. It looked
So-
like almost like something from TNG.
So it wasn't the
models they
Kubrick-
used a lot.
It wasn't the Kubrick destroy it all, we're finished, which is nice.
Oh no. You can see Space 1999 props all over Moonraker, for instance. If you look.
Yeah. No, I just watched rewatched the movie 2010, right, where they just had to go about recreating everything, all the sets from 2001, and didn't bother doing the main set because that I guess would have been insanely expensive. The Discovery's wheel, they did not rebuild that. So
In
yep,
2010.
there you go with a nice hole in it.
Yeah, I found the Blu-ray like a few days later on sale.
Oh yeah, that looks great on Blu-ray, by the way. Just
Okay.
a random 2010 plug.
There's some
Yeah,
good looking
along
stuff in
with
2010.
2001.
Oh, that's a much better box than I've seen.
So now I'm set for
The
2001. Anyway,
other thing that makes this a series ender, I guess, that subtly is Maya gets to turn into a human woman finally. Because if Bane screams about it, who
Oh, you're
cares? Last
right.
episode.
She turned into brunette number one. The background extra, who I think was in the first season as well, but was all in Command Center all season long. We didn't see her. And then she turns into her. And I'm thinking, this is the most screen time she's got in the entire series is right now. Sadly, she didn't get a line. I think they even dubbed Maya's scream over her when she changed back.
I would say it's a union thing, but the unions are different in the UK, aren't
Yeah,
they?
I don't know.
Can extras not speak? I mean, she might just be like, a straight up background actor, and they try to let them
Oh.
speak because that makes them have to get a SAG card in the States at least.
Oh, there is an extra that spoke in this that did a terrible job. Where was it? He said something like, "Just give them, yeah, Commander, let them have Maya." That guy was awful. Whoever that was.
Neither of those guys, because there were two of them. There was the bald guy and there was the younger guy. Neither
Right.
one of them. Let's put it this way: you notice that nobody stuck them in the same room with Patrick Troughton.
No.
Don't put the bad actors in with him.
What I did notice is the bald guy was still standing at the end of the episode, and I'm like, why isn't he in the brig for basically insurrecting against Koenig at a critical moment? The other guy at least got a punch in the face from Tony. That was deserved.
Well, it is a
Remember,
case where it's such a small crew. I mean, I think you really have to. You have to be one of those guys that starts killing everyone on Moonbase to really get thrown in the brig. Because who are they going to replace you with?
Yeah,
Kinda
remember
like Ensign
Seance
Suter.
Spectre? And
Or
Seance
Ensign Suter.
Spectre, they just like let that guy do all kinds of stuff, and
Sanderson.
he had to blow himself up. Like nothing happened to him until he blew himself up.
Want to do something right? Do it yourself.
Yep.
There we go. Let's see lines in this. The other line I wrote, other than taunting Mark at the beginning, was just it almost tore my brain apart. Was a pretty good line. And then they call it a thing, so I had to write down Bones's quote. Why do we call anything we don't understand a thing? Because they totally do that in this episode.
Yeah, Koenig was not particularly eloquent in that point. I like the part where he hands him he's looking at the burnt out circuits from the initial scan. Koenig goes, "Let me see that." He takes it and just hands it right back.
Yeah,
it's burnt all right.
Okay, you saw it. It's burnt. It's proof. You want lines? Let's see. My favorite line, I think, was in Malik just at the end, just because the shield kind of over the top.
My favorite is murdering imbecile. You're unfit to live. Can't get much better than that.
Well, at least nobody got called a pigmy in this episode. Like,
Yeah.
Those about to live salute you. That was a weird line.
That was weird. So was immortality is wasted on the old, which just sounds like somebody took youth is wasted on the young and reversed it, thinking that it was a profound reversal, but it's not really.
Like the Sphinx and Mystery Men. You want to sound mysterious, you just reverse what you just said.
Also see Yoda.
Yep.
Unless you master your anger. Let me guess. Anger will be my master. Is that what you're going to say?
That'll be the next Star Wars probably, because they need to start putting meta jokes in, right?
Stare into the abyss, and abyss stare at you.
Right.
Into you. Okay. Anyway.
Of course I wrote down resistance is futile.
It's better to
quote. Oh my god.
It's better to have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy.
That's right.
Yoda should say that.
Resistance is futile. That was at least a year before the Vogon said resistance is useless, and a good dozen years before the Borg came along. So there you go.
I have thoughts on resistance is futile because this is a hill that I'm willing to die on. So many Voyager episodes, once they had 7 of 9 on board, ripped off Space 1999 episodes about someone coming to, wreak revenge on 7 of 9 for some reason. To the point that I'm surprised and Braga didn't have to cut Jerry Anderson a check. At least buy him a pizza or something, because there were Voyager episodes like Hope and Fear is basically Bringers of Wonder mashed down to a single hour. The season 4 finale of Voyager. And Think Tank, I forget which 1999 episode it is. Think Tank was also borrowed from Space 1999. And so it just seemed like they were doing find and replace swaps with Space 1999 scripts, okay, swap out Maya for 7 of 9, good to go.
I kind of remember that phenomenon when I was watching Voyager.
But then we can roll the
Resistance is futile. Just seemed kind of like, oh, okay, well, so they didn't even come up with that.
Of course, then you can roll the ball down the hill a little bit more and look at how many season 2 episodes basically, bop a TOS Star Trek episode, And then they take the immunity syndrome from last week. We got that. Kind of. So it does go both ways, at least.
Yeah. Well, the whole being lost in space trope is starts with Lost in Space, right? It's kind of the first one, and then Space 1999, and then Voyager, and then in between there you can probably include Red Dwarf.
Include Battlestar.
Battlestar. Lost in Space is being it's a.
Yeah. Now, as far as favorite lines, I did also write down, "Your advice is rejected," which, for the record, rhymes with emasculated.
Okay, I had to work that out for a second.
Nice. Yeah, we do go into it a lot, the Voyager comparisons a lot, and part of it is season 2. They got the fresh new character who's the super powered lady who's also a good actor, which makes it work. Which I maintain that neither of these would work if it wasn't for like Jerry Ryan and Catherine Schell being extremely talented. Not that Catherine Schell is given all that much to work with, but
she was almost given the Janeway role. She was in one of the last contenders for that.
That's true. That would have been really funny.
that would have made what you just said
better choice than Jean-Pierre Pujol, who got the role and then just
left
threw it
after
away.
2 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you get what you want, and you think you want, you realize it's not for you. It happens.
No, but the Lost in Space parallel is that show is always obviously out of money. And that was I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved that show when I was a kid, but it definitely was sort of like, it's just they're just gonna be on a planet for an entire season because they're out of money. Like that was
and that was the first season.
That was the second season. The first season looked good. If you go back and watch the black and white season,
the black and white season,
you would see their ship like fly up to planets and like satellites and stuff, and they'd look really cool. And Dr. Smith was still a Nazi.
Yeah, they blew their budget probably halfway through and then landed the ship and then kept it there for the rest of the season.
Trek was smart enough to get the transporters, which are I did not write down what they called the transporters in this thing because that was insane.
The Meson converter.
Oh, okay.
Not to be confused with the transbeamer.
Yes.
Right.
From Devil's Planet.
Yeah.
Because
speaking of a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to insert a correction. I did a comparison with Elysia with Servalan, but I misspoke and said she was from Babylon 5. She's from Blake 7.
Oh,
Earl reminded me of that just now when he mentioned Blake 7. I was like, oh yeah, I screwed that up. I can tell the difference between Babylon 5 and Blake 7, guys. I just want you to know that.
I've never watched
a number.
Yeah,
it's got a number and a word that begins with B, so my brain got them confused.
This is not a script complaint because they do work it out once they start talking brainstems going into Dorcons. But at first when they say Psychons means to cheat death, I'm like, what? 2 of the 3 we've met are dead. So that threw me off for a second.
Yeah,
which brings us. Well, wait a minute.
The last living Psychon. I'm like, how do you know you're the last living Psychon? I'm pretty sure that we just met a Psychon 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
And is he dead? I didn't know if they killed Dorzak.
I think they did.
The staser just stuns
No,
people.
you're right. He's not dead. He's just
probably back in stasis.
Stasis.
Which means they totally could have given the Dorcons the address to the Croton Empire and said, "There's a Psychon over there that they don't even want. Go get that Psychon. He's even the same age as Patrick Troughton, approximately. Let's just go."
And he's evil. You'll love it.
And if they could just phrase it like, "Hey, Dorcons, go get this Psychon from these Crotons." If it was that exact line.
Also, once the attack starts, which was great, that you do have to consider, is this better than the war game sequence as far as moon base attack? As we watch new parts explode, that was kind of fun. But Yeah, I did want to see when everyone's running the stations and stuff. I did want just one shot of Brian the Brain and the Tabor running somewhere because they're still somewhere around Moonbase, right?
I don't think so. Wait, or was Brian the Brain brought back? I guess the Tabor is gone.
Did he leave?
I th-
Okay.
I think
I
he's
think
sort of
we
like
kept
lore.
talking
He's in a
about it.
drawer somewhere in pieces. I don't think Brian the Brain was in one.
He's on a thumb drive now.
It's much safer there.
In
Got
my
a
head canon, they're
question.
just hanging him out of the ship or the moon.
I did think Malik though had, and I'll try and refer to it as a character as much as possible because he had great psychotic eyes. Was he twirling the mustache he couldn't grow because he was what 21 at the time? Yeah, he was twirling that fake mustache as hard as he could, but the first couple scenes I was like, man, he does look like a psychopath.
Yeah,
he's
he did a
definitely
great
chewing
job.
the scenery. Yeah, I like the way he did that.
Now, after he sends Koenig down the hall to the surgery area, tells him where it's all going down, he turns, almost looks directly into the camera with this smile like, not just a stinker. I mean, it's a he's he's not knocking down the fourth wall, but he's leaning over and tapping on it.
I like it. I just like his chaotic evil energy because it's like you could tell that Koenig, that's part of why this works for me, is you could tell that Koenig knows that he cannot trust this guy at all, and he just has to be like, well, it's like, well, I'll just take this now and come back to it later.
Deal with the repercussions later. Yeah.
Koenig is in a terrible situation in this episode, if you think about it, because he's just trying to defend Maya in particular, but more broadly, his entire crew and the moon base. He doesn't give a two damns about the core intrigue going on with the Dorcons, but like it or not, he is now a player in that drama. And
kind of like
I thought that was kind of interesting that this is it's a legit no good solutions situation and not one that has happened because the writer has moved pieces around on the board in a very writerly way that doesn't make sense for people's actual motivations. Not that I'm saying that's ever happened on this show before.
I do kind of like the structure though, that it is like just everyone on deck. That's still on the show at least. Big space battle, and then Koenig jumps into the beam and key turns. It's like now a different episode completely. Like I said, it would have been cool to have a moon-based cutback, but I guess it's kind of cool that they didn't. Because it just makes the second half of the episode feel like very different from the first half. And my other observation I was going to throw out was I did feel like the three villains here were kind of like a greatest hits of Space 1999 villain archetypes, because we got your Brian Blessed sort of guy with Patrick sort of taking that role, right? We have the Joan Collins sort of Darien sort of lady. Now she's a Dorcon, different actress, and then the young Psycho, which we got in stuff like The Exiles. So we kind of went around the horn of Space 1999 villains, and I like that.
Well, my observation about this episode is that right around the time Johnny Byrne was probably trying to write the script for this, I Claudius was airing on the BBC, and this just struck me as a very I Claudius episode. They're space Romans basically. They're going around in robes. There's an emperor. There's court intrigue going on, and then that the emperor is going to be doomed. Someone's going to kill him. So that's where I was going with this. It felt like I Claudius to me.
It would have fit Space 1999 season 2 so much better if it was a few years later and the Johnny Byrne was watching Caligula instead.
Well, yeah,
I was going to go there, but okay, sure.
It does remind me of The Last Enemy, which was the episode where Koenig was also in a no-win situation and had to like figure a way out of it, trapped in between two like alien forces. The difference being that episode had the extra footage shot where he went and murdered a bunch of people. So in a way, this is more I don't know, palatable. I don't know. Like Koenig isn't just cold-blooded. At least the psychopath is the one murdering people, and it's not our hero who's not just blowing up a ship full of people.
Well, the battle scene reminded me of that too, when Dione and her crew were like waving their hands over controls and opening fire on it. They did pretty much the same thing in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things in season 2 that I would trade for Koenig murdering people, but it still felt like a weird and jarring choice in that episode, which was often aired as the first season finale. So that would kind of rhyme with this in a way.
You know,
The
I can't
last
count off.
Dorcons.
Yeah, I can't count off too many points for all the hand wavy control stuff, because if you think about it, that has come full circle. We do that in sci-fi shows now, only they do stuff in post that makes it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember why, but the first line I put in my notes for this was, "Is Fred Freiberger J.J. Abrams?" So
Was
what
there lens flare?
now I'm thinking about the way he kind of sands things off on scripts, because I'm getting to this point where I'm kind of, maybe it's my age, I don't know what, where I'm kind of like mad at J.J. Abrams and don't feel like I'm going to feel better about him at any time in the near future for things that
Are you Abrams
various
out?
things. Yeah, just the various things where he just would sand off edges and like there was something where Chris Pine had an anecdote where he was like, "Can you show me how something or other works?" And he was like, "Just do it as fast as you can, nobody will notice." or something like that, or no one will care.
We'll fix
And
it in post.
yeah, kind of. I mean, like, I don't know, Star Wars Rogue One, to pick on somebody else, was like 15 hours of footage that was edited down to a thing that ostensibly makes sense, but it still doesn't feel like a coherent work to
Well, I
me.
guess a few years later that would have been a TV show, right? But it was just
But
before that happened.
but the TV show Andor was not made like that. That was a show that was made by someone who had, a show planned out.
I guess
Like
the
that.
issues, especially in season 2 of Space 99, is clearly there's something that's missing in the script process. Like, we have good writers generally, but either it seems like the few times we just went first draft, right? And then a few other times it just got mangled into something that didn't make sense. So there's a script issue somewhere in the production of this show. And I think season 1 still had a bit of that going on too. And then in post, something goes weird with editing a lot in season 2, which I don't think was the case in season 1. Like, season 2 has weird editing sometimes. Like I said, people would die and I wouldn't pick up on it because it was edited so strangely.
Yes. I mean, maybe they didn't get all as much like coverage as they should have.
Yeah, and in this episode, maybe that's one of the reasons Koenig just going around for 7 or 8 minutes and the Dorcon ship is like not the most compelling stuff, because the action is not properly blocked and edited.
Oh,
Yeah,
especially his reveal at the end where he just appears out of nowhere when he jumps Malak. It's like they couldn't show one more shot of the vent, of him coming out of the vent or something. He just jumps over the camera, or his stunt guy does.
We spent that 45 seconds, after he went through the first vent going, ow, my fingers.
I mean, the thing that the show is going for, and why we've been seeing her doing 48 episodes of it, 47, and how, considering what you do with Bringers of Wonder, and I want to say 47 for obvious Star Trek reasons, but oh man, I just dug a hole. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh yeah. The acting is generally pretty good or entertaining if it's not good, and of course the production design is like, I mean, this maybe still ranks as the best production design for a sci-fi TV show, I would say. Even, it's got weird problems, but they're fun weird problems,
Well, wasn't it the most expensive series of its kind made in the 70s? It held that
Right.
title for a while, I think.
And
Yes,
coming
and
from the whole, because that's the thing, by this point you don't feel Jerry Anderson's fingerprints on the show anymore, except that all those, that world building was done in season 1. Those models are still showing up, so it's like that's kind of a baseline for all of this.
I left this out of my trivia because I found it out after I did the trivia, and I thought trivia was long enough, but I don't know what happened in between Space 1999 and Space Precinct, which Jerry Anderson did in like the late 80s, but that series became the most expensive UK TV series when he made that. And that was a live action mostly live action series. Has anyone seen this?
Yes. It's live action with full size animatronics instead of. I mean, they do have some puppetry in there if they're showing it in a way that, oh, this is a creature in a pit. Well, it's a hand puppet, but we're editing it together like it's a creature in a pit. But they had like full head animatronics on actors in Space Precinct, and so it was, forget super macromation. Now you are the puppet.
Yeah, I gotta watch this.
Yeah,
It's
me
an
too.
entertaining show. It's kind of it's kind of weird that this was on at the same time as Star Trek: The Next Generation was wrapping up, and about the same time that Deep Space Nine was raising the bar even higher than Next Generation. But the feeling of Space Precinct is we're trying so hard to be family hour drama and yet also a gritty cop show. And look, the creatures are all man-sized space puppets.
There's something in the air. Isn't this about the same time we got the Cop Rock and Fish Police and all those sorts of shows?
Yeah, maybe. I gotta say, this might be blasphemous, but I think Deep Space Nine would have been better if they also put Muppets in it.
Anything's
Any
better with
show is
Muppets.
improved by putting Muppets in it. I mean,
Yeah.
just put Statler and Waldorf in everything. I mean, not every episode, but just be running down the halls of Moonbase Alpha, and there they are. Where are they
Yeah.
going?
I mean,
Well,
again, what did Lou Grade put his money towards after this, other than raise the Titanic?
I
Yeah,
always
and
just
not
heard
only
Raise
that,
the
but
Titanic. I didn't
The
know these other
Muppet
ones.
Show.
Oh yeah, the
so-
Muppet Show.
well, and I mean, apocryphally, it's like him calling in favors was the whole reason they had that insane, list of celebrity guests on the Muppet Show. Because like, I dare anybody to read the list of Muppet Show guests and not be impressed. Like that
yeah.
was
Oh
unbelievable.
yeah, he got quite a few.
ITV's
Amazing
puppets get
guest.
only the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like,
Well, if you want
almost
Space Muppets,
Love Boat
go watch Farscape. That's where you get your Space Muppets.
levels.
Never seen it, but I heard it was good.
I've never seen it, but it is on Blu-ray right over there. So I
All
have no
right, there you
excuse.
go.
Oh, I sense another podcast coming.
I
Well, that
Matt
makes
has
watched
something
things
to
get
watch.
started.
I watched the entire, what was the Jim Henson thing where he had the half of it was
Jim
Muppets
Henson
in
Show?
space. Was that what it's called? Jim Henson Show. Half of it was
1988
Muppets
about.
in a space station, and then half of it was the serious Muppets.
Yeah, I think that was just the Jim
Business.
Henson Show. It's trying to make his name more of a Walt Disney thing, which and then
Yeah, it got
Yeah.
canceled.
very quickly. And then I think they turned like the remaining more serious segments into like TV movies or something.
Serious Muppets. Band name. Matthew, let's start a band.
Ooh,
Yes, Serious Muppets. That's great.
Any other big observations someone wants to throw on this one?
I have a question.
Hmm?
Is this the first time that Koenig has ever ordered them to hide the eagles instead of bring them all up and launch them? Because there's a point where they drop them all back into the silos for safekeeping, and I was like, whoa, this is the behavior of someone who knows that they have only a few eagles left because they've splashed all the rest of them.
And then they immediately launched them 5 minutes later, so they had to
Yeah,
bring
it's
them
like,
back
oh,
up.
get them up there faster.
And we
That
lose
made me
Eagle
laugh.
4 again.
I love that stock
I'm not
footage
sure.
of the elevators and the doors and everything. That's that's what Matt calls the eagle porn.
Yeah.
Anytime we got eagle
Hearing
stuff happening.
that they were basically out of money for this episode, like that battle sequence did not look like it. Like I was like, oh, are they throwing all the rest? I mean, I guess they were throwing the rest of their money at it, but I was like, maybe the Dorcon's throne room is going to look like something for a community theater play, but we're gonna have a cool space battle first.
And the green spotlight is back as alien probe of the week or whatever.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, the
killer
death
spotlight.
color.
It's the death color. No, wait, it's the brainstem color.
Yes, it
As for
blasts
your
main blast main mission with a burst of minty freshness.
What
Yeah,
does it smell like?
I don't know if they've hidden. I don't remember if if Koenig's ordered the eagles to hide. I do know the last time they got attacked like on this level was kind of war games, and Koenig's response to that was, "This is war," and he just like completely went all out on these aliens who they had no chance against. So it is kind of nice to see him be like have a little bit of understanding of the situation that
Yeah,
they're
this is more
actually in.
like circle up the wagons, right?
I mean, it helps that Maya is afraid of them, and she's the most powerful person on the ship.
Also, War Games,
I
he'd
mean,
been commander of Moonbase
Moon.
for probably maybe a year at that point, where now it's been what, 6 or 7 years. So he's got a lot more experience at this point.
2,409 days.
Right. And we started this season at 500. So all of season 1 has to be in like a short period, even though that's contradicted in episodes of season 1. But whatever. If I'm
That's
going to take that
6.5.
timeline, he's got a lot more experience here than he did in War Games. So it makes sense that he'd do smarter things at this point.
Well, I will give someone benefit of the doubt on that who wrote things.
Yeah. Jumping into the beam, was that smart?
Well, it turns out it was.
I'm kind of surprised
out-
Tony didn't join him for some reason. I thought
yeah.
the two of them together
Yeah.
might have had more luck.
At that moment, I guess that's his hero moment. But seriously, like, what is your plan doing that?
Or Alan. Alan was closer to the beam. He could have jumped in with him.
Yeah,
We
but
could have had some more fisticuffs with the Australian in the last episode. That'd been great.
but yeah, what is your plan? There's no way that's going to work out well, and it didn't for a while, did it?
Do you guys think
Oh,
this
if it
would
weren't for
better?
Malik, he was screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had no way of knowing that was the case. Do you guys think this episode would have been better if Koenig had planted a kiss on Maya when he rescued her? No.
No.
Nobody's even gonna touch that one.
I think it would have been better if Koenig planted a kiss on Tony when he got back.
Or if he kissed Consul Varda.
Now I want to kiss Tony.
Or if Malik kissed Consul Varda. I don't know. All kinds of stuff could happen.
Right.
I
kinda-
know what is it with that beam that always takes 2 takes in order to catch a Psychon? It scans Maya, pans off, and says, "Wait a minute," and then it comes back. I think that's bad directing. I think they're trying to do this false. Oh, she's gonna get away with it. No.
Well, if you're metal detecting, you pass it and you beep, 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 beep. Oh, I should go back there. Maybe that's what it's doing. It's like metal detector. I haven't.
It's just a
used the metal
psych thing
detector,
that they
though.
did with the beam, which has kind of annoyed me the second time they did it. I mean, the second time was more plausible since she was disguised, but I don't know.
It was being operated by a kid who likes to play with flashlights.
Hey, Earl, was Troughton that old looking in 77, or did they age him up a little bit? I don't
They
think he was...
aged him up a little bit, but he was generally speaking that old looking then. Like a lot of British actors, all 37 of them who were working at that time, because it seemed like the same people showed up in everything. He smoked too much, he drank too much, and apparently spent his free time not keeping his fly zipped around anyone. So,
okay.
yeah, the things that have come out about him since Doctor Who, and of course, since he died, are kind of in the here and now. He would have been Me Too'd, like he would have been Me Too'd 4 times. It would have been Me 4. But
didn't he die at Dragon Con?
He
Why?
died at a
Columbus,
convention.
Georgia.
Yeah, he died at a convention in Georgia, in the U.S., in costume, because he always showed up at the conventions in costume. And they found him in his hotel room dressed as the second Doctor.
Man.
Well, was it Dragon Con? I think it was in the
No.
episode.
It wasn't,
okay.
because it says March 1987, and
okay.
Dragon Con is around
the summer.
Labor Day. I think it was in October at first, but yeah, and it's not Columbus. Columbus is pretty far from here, actually.
Speaking of Dragon Con, did you watch the robots battle today?
Yeah, it was great. I saw like a little wedge thing go up under a gigantic like scoop and flip it over. It was really cool.
Well, that's why I mentioned it, because I knew you were at Dragon Con this week.
Yeah, so I saw Walter Koenig. Walter Koenig did a panel with Babs from Strange New Worlds and Garrett Wong, and it was man, Koenig's very funny. Still got it, even though Garrett definitely had to kind of yell questions into his ear, but he's doing great for his age. And there was something where somebody asked something like, "How do you feel like you inspire people?" And you're just like, "What the hell's the matter with you people?" was his response. I was like, "Yeah, that's fun."
Oh, congratulations on correctly pronouncing his name on a Space 1999 podcast, by the way.
Oh, yeah, because you can go back to the first 4 episodes of this podcast, and I keep pronouncing Commander Koenig's name as Commander Koenig. So like, I guess I have a preference.
And yet you keep saying Helena, Matt. What the hell?
What the hell?
You know better by now.
we all know how to pronounce stasis, though.
Yes.
Stasis.
Yeah, but Pat Troughton was 57 in this episode, or 56, and I have a lot of friends who are 57. They look a lot better, like doing a lot better than he is
Well,
here.
I guess
And
people generally look younger these days, as it
Well,
says.
because we're not killing ourselves every way we can simultaneously,
yeah,
like that generation of actors so often was. On Genealogy, we talk about Richard Boone a lot. He was in his early 40s when he shot that, and he looks kind of like he's kind of like the Edward James Olmos of his generation. Richard
It's
Boone was.
got a bit of a
Mhm.
grandfatherly look. I mean, a cool grandfather, but yeah.
Yeah, but he
Mm.
looks like he's been through some stuff and is, getting way too old for this, redacted. And and in fact, he was in his prime, or what should have been his prime, if not for, smoking, cholesterol, excessive alcohol use, that sort of thing.
We call that out on
Yeah.
Twilight Zone a lot. How the actors look
Yeah,
a lot
it's
older than they should in our
wild.
modern
This man
modern
is
day.
36. No, he isn't.
He's clearly 48. What are you talking about?
At best.
At
Um,
best.
well, let's break this one down. Actually, you know what? It's the last episode. I think we can do both questions if that's cool. We'll start with our regular season 2 one though, I guess, which is what percentage of this is hardcore sci-fi and how much is softcore fun.
This is pretty hardcore. I mean, granted that you assume that beams work, but it's relatively hard sci-fi. I don't know, give it like 70-30, just to be kind of vague and nice.
The brainstem thing is a little stupid. Again, if they had made it
But-
like her frontal lobe, I'd go up to 80 if it was frontal lobe, but since it's brainstem, it's down to 70. I'm going to agree with you, Mark.
Okay, cool.
I agree with what you're saying, except for brainstem brings it down for me. So
That's fair.
Well, like at
Brian?
the end of the episode, Tony says, "Are there any other secrets you want to tell us about?" And I was kind of like thinking, do you have any other special body parts that we should know about that somebody's going to come looking for? Yeah. No, the brainstem thing made a bit of sense, because if you transplant her frontal lobes, you're taking her memory and her personality with you, right? And then basically the Archon becomes Maya in another body. So I don't know. It is kind of a weird, cheesy sort of falls in with the horror aspect that Space 1999 used to be in season 1, when it was more gothic and, scary things were happening. So that sort of body horror, like we're gonna, tear a part out of you, was interesting, even though it was very antiseptic. They have their special, brain transplant couches with their brain transplant transporters built into them that glow behind them. It's like, wait a minute, they do this so rarely, and yet they have a whole room set up for it. Well, he was the king of the Dorcons, I guess. So I guess they
Hey,
justified it.
Use
Mark,
the Archon, please.
Mark, I ran off for bio break while you're doing your trivia, but
Uh-huh.
did you mention how the script wanted you to say that the word Archon?
I did not, but yes, it was supposed to
It's
be
just
Archon.
weird. Archon, which is
Archon.
kind of bizarre sounding. I think it was to not confuse with Arcanon or something, but I'm
Yes.
kind of glad they didn't do that, because that would have been like stasis, It would have been
Archon, Dorcon,
distracting.
Croton, Luton,
Yeah, so it would have thrown
Psychon.
things off.
Everything is on.
So Earl, we're putting 100 percentage points. You can choose how much of this is hardcore sci-fi and how much is softcore baby.
I'm probably going to come down around Mark's numbers here. It's not as a lot of Space 1999, as much as I love the look of it, and in the first season, especially the feel of it. I kind of like that thick blanket of despair that, and there's so many angles that comes from, like Barry Gray's music. Although I love the Derek Wadsworth music in season 2. No lie, I love the space disco. I also
Same.
faithfully watched Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, so that should come as a surprise to no one. But I kind of agree with him that we are at least reaching. Someone was at least trying to make this more technical than metaphysical, which so often Space 1999 comes down on the metaphysical end of things. And, they don't feel a need to explain it. And someone here was trying to make it make sense. And maybe they don't know which part of the brain, I don't know how Dorcons work. Maybe what they need is in the brainstem. I have no idea. But it feels like they were at least trying to make it make sense. And the character dynamics, even if they are falling back on some very well-worn archetypes, it's interesting. The palace intrigue angle is does a lot of heavy lifting in this episode and keeps it from being about Koenig crawling through extraordinarily well-lit ventilation ducts. Why do you need that much light in a ventilation duct?
There was more lights in the ducts than there were in the
in the
corners.
rest of the set. Yeah,
It makes
And
a cool glowing effect in the hallway, you see.
it's yeah. I mean, that's all I can figure. You only need well-lit ventilation ducts. If you're doing Die Hard crap, and you're doing Die Hard crap. The- There's some memorable stuff in here. Some of it's memorable for the wrong reasons. I couldn't hear the line, "Those about to live salute you," without thinking, "Those about to rock salute you."
Yeah.
Automatically my brain went
Probably
there.
because it was being said by a 21-year-old as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a 21-year-old with a space mullet.
And a bauble on his shoulder.
I think there's something kind of interesting right in that last sequence. It almost feels like maybe you could almost accuse them of accidentally reaching toward this Maya takes over the show or Maya gets a spinoff idea, because, Maya, what else haven't you told us? What if season 3 or the new show or whatever it was going to be, what if that started out with, "Oh, Maya, that there is this bridge we can't follow you across and we can't support you and maybe you can't stay. Here, you get the Eagle set. You go off in that direction with some stock footage. You're a new show." You could almost kind of follow that off ramp, but honestly, I think that's giving them way too much credit for advanced planning on this when there's been very little evidence of that.
I have
And
no
Tony
idea
with
what
them,
the
bring back Gary
where they were
Morris.
going to go with that.
I,
There was
from
no notes or
things-
anything on it.
things I left out of the trivia include that Tony Anholt, I think, was already not going to come back for season 3. He was, he had his agent find him something else. So no matter what, he wasn't going to come back. I don't, and the reason they cut that scene that was like a definitive ending to the season was just because they kept hoping that they would get picked up, which is really sad because it seems like Lou Grade had already made that decision for them. But it's not like now where you could just take it to Netflix.
I didn't give you my percentages. I was going to say 60%
Oh, yeah.
Hardcore techie and 40% I Claudius.
Well,
Okay.
sure, why not?
Oh, and one more thing, in my head canon, it's like that Malik is like a dork, and he went to like AliExpress in space and bought like a ton of LEDs and put them in the ventilation shaft, like you would if he had a PC, like if he had a ton of lights in his PC.
When you water cool the ventilation shafts.
Yeah,
So-
like, he goes on YouTube and just like, check out my ventilation shaft, how much LEDs I put in it.
I do want to throw our season 1 question on this one as well, because for me, the first half actually felt like a season 1 episode, and that was like a full dread one, and it was great. That it was one of my favorite sequences in season 2 for sure. And the second half was goofier in hell, but it was like the better side of, I think, season 2 goofy. In fact, when I was watching the episode, I think it was at the 26-minute mark, like right halfway in, is when they beam Maya out. And everyone looks aghast, and I was like, "Oh, right there! You could just like dun 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 dun, dun like right there, and that would have been fun." They've lost the moon bases in rubble, and there goes Maya, and now the episode ends. You could do it, I guess, if you want to be hardcore. But yeah, so I'm throwing it 50-50 because I felt like 50 dread and 50 sci-fi fun, because I felt like the episode almost splits evenly that way. There's a little sci-fi fun the first half, and getting your brainstem ripped out is certainly dreadful in the second half. But in general, I'm like, first half is existential dread. Second half is sci-fi fun. You can agree, disagree, modify. What do you want to say?
I'm giving it 25% existential dread and 75% fun because Maya's dread is real, but it doesn't feel like anybody else's dread is really real. All of the bad guys are silly, and Koenig is, heroic, but he's still being kind of silly. This his action is his arc as an action hero. And this is kind of silly, so I'm going 25% dread. But yeah, everything that Maya is feeling is severe and real terror. And there was a scene that was cut where Maya was going to like just point a gun at herself, and Koenig actually talk her down. And I think there was sort of a version of that where I think two different people threatened to kill Maya in a very short period of time. But anyway, that was a long explanation, but 25%.
Buy an extra season of this or the Psychon gets it.
Yeah.
Sci-fi dread, I would say, or existential dread, yeah, I'd say probably at least 30 or something, just because of what Maya's going through. And then the rest was, a romp again with explosions, spaceships, alien technology. So it was fun. But Maya was thoroughly freaked out throughout most of the episode by the presence of the Dorcons. And the whole idea of her, wanting to die was like, ugh, it's that bad, is it?
I don't know. I've got to come down like 45% dread, 55% fun, because we have, first off, Catherine Shell is selling the hell out of this for the whole show. She, among the regular cast, she is the hero of this episode in acting terms. Patrick Troughton does some really interesting things, making the Archon this guy who is at the end of his life, and he seems to be laying a lot of groundwork for this guy is not like the others. Yeah, he's not an utter bastard. He's this kindly old guy at the end of his life, and he's questioning the system that keeps him alive. And then he's like, no, okay with it. I'm going to be a bastard. And so among the guest cast, Troughton is carrying that end of things on his back. So there is some dread. I mean, you have two characters, one among the regulars, one among the guests, who are looking at the end of the road, and you kind of see their reactions to that. And so, yeah, I think there's a pretty good amount of existential dread, but a lot of it you could be forgiven for thinking that we've just rewound to the Metamorph, because we're running down orange hallways again, and it almost feels like the machine that is keeping the Dorcons world running is almost kind of like the mentor machine in the Metamorph. It's serving the same function. It's keeping their entire civilization running, or at least that ship. And once again, you have this character of some sort of regal bearing or rank who is he's not being a good guy, and then he gets to the end where he's murdered his way into a corner where no one's going to save him, and he can't salvage the situation, and he can't decree his way out of it for all the power he has just bought himself, by killing his predecessor. And so there is some pathos there, that there's some actual story there, but there's also a lot of corridors.
His kingdom for a space horse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it right? I keep thinking about, do they live on the ship? Does it just happen that the Archon, who's like the head of their civilization, happens to be on this one ship where they find the last Psychon,
What
according
if he's the
to the
district
script?
manager?
Yeah. Yeah. What if he's just he might just be the oldest guy in the quadrant. I don't know.
I was wondering how they found her in the first place. I think they were following a trail of breadcrumbs from sightings of Maya throughout the entire season, going across the galaxy. It said there seems to be a Psychon on a moon somewhere. We have to go find this moon. Maybe we'll find her. So I don't know how they.
Oh yeah, one more plot hole punch, I guess, is just like they've got the machine to keep her from transforming, but we learned in Dorzak that being a Psychon does not automatically make you a metamorph. So why would they have that machine? It seems like it's a special learned skill that only Mentor and Maya had, and
Mhm.
Dorzak once he learned it.
Well,
They weren't
maybe
surprised by it. Yeah.
maybe that suppresses all of their powers, whatever they might be, including Dorzak's mind control.
Okay, sure, I'll give you that.
It's just like an X-Men planet where you have all
Oh.
kinds of stuff.
Oh, and this is like the third mention of antimatter this season, or this year through the series. Like second one, like there's Lee on the antimatter planet, and there's Vindris, and then this time they just kind of mention, oh, it's antimatter in passing, and then they just, I guess that's what blows up at the end. The shields
Yeah.
drop, and then it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
my
now we're
only-
treating it more like a substance from Star Trek rather than this other world where, you know, inhabited by strange beings. Or
Yeah,
something.
my only note on that is what's the matter. So,
What's the matter? Well, we know we've learned that when antimatter touches matter, that it destroys the entire galaxy. So, you know, clearly that didn't happen.
that's how the
It
show
won't.
could have ended.
What was that
Sure.
they said at the beginning? It's highly sensitive to matter. Well, most things made of matter are. It's how it
could-
works.
They could give us a Beneath the Planet of the Apes ending, you know? Except it's the universe now, or the galaxy at least.
Or, you know,
I-
you could have
yeah, right.
actually, you know, cut this one off in the middle if you'd been really bloodthirsty. Why is main mission still this? It's like the bridge on every ship in Star Trek. It's this big thing right on top of the base
Yeah.
where you can shoot it. You know, at this point, I would have burrowed down like underneath the silos where the eagles are kept and build a
think
new
they
base
are in
out
this
of that.
season.
Well, yeah, that's where Command Center is. That's the reason they moved. Well, the real world reason is they couldn't afford to keep the setup anymore because it took too much soundstage space. But the in-universe reason is like, yeah, we kind of realized main mission was a little too targetable. So
Yeah.
we just moved underground where we should have been the whole time.
But even this space, you know, seems very exposed. And I'm just like, okay, why does no one ever think of this when an invading force arrives and be like, hey, welcome. We're going to step out and go to the bathroom real quick, seal the doors, and vent it to vacuum. No more invading force.
Yep.
Maybe I'm being a little bit kill happy there, but it seems like someone would have thought of that at some point.
Feel sorry for the two security guards who are guarding those doors that nothing ever happened at.
Hey,
No
at
one
least they're
came
doing their
storming
job.
through the doors because
Well,
they
those are-
beamed in.
Happiest guys on the ship. Well, I guess we'll wind this one down. First, I'll just mention a little bit of what we're doing for listeners. We'll be doing a few kind of supplemental episodes after this. We're coming up soon is our final four, so we're going to break down, pair them all up against each other, college basketball style.
Brackets. It's called brackets.
We got brackets. I made brackets.
Got brackets.
Got brackets. So dealing with those brackets soon. Earl, you want to tell the folks what's going on in the Mishlog genealogy department or elsewise?
Oh, sure. Mission Log Genealogy is a show where we go back and look at either completed shows or scripts, or in some cases, unsold scripts or series pitches written by Gene Roddenberry in the years before he created Star Trek. So basically, we're kind of following the breadcrumb trail from, hey, I want to be a TV writer, to, hey, I've got enough clout, they are going to give me my own show. And we are, a lot of his career prior to Star Trek was spent on the Western Have Gun Will Travel. And we are now we just recorded the last season 3 episode of that show, which lasted 5 seasons, or 6 seasons, correction, sorry. So we're about halfway through Have Gun Will Travel. We've got some other stuff coming up. We have literally day 1 of doing research for this show, I found out that, you know, you go to Wikipedia or wherever, it tells you the first show Gene ever created was The Lieutenant in 1963. Day 1 of doing research, we found out that's wrong. He got a show on the air for 6 weeks in 1960. And we are actually going to get to cover that through the scripts that were written for it. Unfortunately, the episodes all exist, but they are held in the UCLA Media Library, and you have to make a special appointment to go see them. And me not being in LA, and and, you know, being where I am, there, you know, there's virtually no chance of me getting to see it. But, you know, we talk about this stuff extensively, we analyze it, and just kind of see, how much Gene is in there. Can you see all the genes in these stories? And in many cases, we're finding out he was getting away with this stuff long before it was about spaceships.
Nice.
All right. I should just throw out that genealogy is kind of like a college course in old school television, so you will learn things about old school television you did not know. I think we
Yes.
can promise that to the listener.
Definitely also makes me think, man, I should have. Oh boy, I didn't get very much done in the early part of my life. Holy crap. I haven't even made Star Trek yet.
Well, you made a podcast about Space 1999, so you got that going for you.
We can build till we make a podcast about something we made up ourselves.
And you have other podcasts which people could find on Patreon, like Time Enough Podcast, Podcastius. I should say that first. Like Time Enough Podcast. Where
Yes.
sometimes you get to talk about the Twilight Zone, and people can hear that. Or Films and Filth. People can hear you every week talking about movies. So there's what you're doing with your life.
Yep.
That's a motivational plug.
Going down. Yes, we just did Spice World. Actually,
Yes.
Spice World is great. I'm not going to attack Spice World.
Spice World's great. And also I guess I'll go ahead and spit out for this podcast that our plan after doing a little bit of Space 99 supplemental is to go ape. So if sticking in that 70s sci-fi, we're thinking 70s apes here, TV show, original movies.
I thought you
animated.
meant that the podcast was just going to mean that we were going to scream at each other for an hour.
Doesn't that always already happen? I don't know.
What did we just do?
Can I be a baboon?
Dorcon.
Yeah, a really nice scream.
Yes, we're gonna get deep on some ape series. So everybody look forward to that. We're gonna exhaust some apes.
Be a Dorcon. Listen, that's what fans of this podcast are now. You're all Dorcons.
You're all Dorcons.
Dork on, dork off.
Dork on, dork off. The Dorker. Wait, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, clearly that's where I cut. Okay.
Okay, clearly. I don't know what dork is as a verb, but it makes me uncomfortable.
Too dork. Yeah, it doesn't.
I'm gonna go dork now.
Doesn't sound good. I assume this was the moment you mentioned Earl.
Yes,
With
yes,
Malik.
that is exactly it. It's just like, hey, folks, I'm still here.
Hello.
Well, when are you
Sorry to hear
cutting this?
about that guy, but yeah, he was
Yeah.
definitely off the hook in this episode, and
Okay,
that made
so
it better.
Yeah, the note that I left off the table because of that trivia was I thought that they should have gotten Michael or David Troughton cast as that character because they've both got some serious chops. They were both acting already. And he is Patrick Trout, and this guy is supposed to be Patrick Troughton's nephew.
Yeah,
Why
they
not
would
get
have
one of
resembled each other.
Patrick
Yeah.
Troughton's son to play
Perfect.
that character. And honestly, I'm still not entirely sold on the performance.
No,
Because-
he made choices in the performance. That's
He's-
for
he's a-
sure.
he-
Choices were made.
He's a young actor, hasn't had that much experience, so I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. I will say that his hair, for some reason, I immediately think of Justin Hayward or the Moody Blues when I see this guy, at least from the back.
It kind of made me feel like that's probably
70s
what it
hair.
was like to hang out with somebody in a psych rock band if they had taken a lot of drugs and were really famous. Or
Yeah.
thought they were really famous.
I think the thing is he did have acting talent, but was trying way too hard. So there's a mix
Yeah,
of
maybe.
actual talent versus trying way too hard, and that's the performance we got. Which again, I guess you're 21, you might try way too hard. I see that, but that might have been why his acting career didn't quite take off. He was acting too hard, you know.
I mean,
Think about De Niro. De Niro barely does anything on screen most of the time, you know.
yeah, you could say that.
And that's good De Niro,
Shock.
by the way. I'm thinking of 70s De Niro there, 80s De Niro. But he
You-
doesn't
you-
do much.
Yeah, you could maybe chalk that up to his mental struggles. That
Bruce
maybe he was-
Willis in The Sixth Sense, he barely does anything in that movie, and that's what makes it a good performance. He does
Yeah.
not give you any Willis charm in that movie.
I mean, you also can't like coach somebody's acting based on a movie from 25 years in the future.
No, I'm just saying, like, understated acting is actually, sometimes
Yes.
the best acting.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of times in Space 1999 when Martin Landau just whispers, and it's kind of great.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. So,
Well, it's like Brian Blessed. You either get the roar or or you get the hiss.
Blind on a rocket cycle.
Okay, I guess I'm going to go ahead and hit the recording button. Goodbye to those listening on Patreon.
Goodbye, Patreon.
Da, da.